So here generally this is called as expression value or expression. And here we have case and case value or expression, case value or expression colon. And we have statements to execute. Then break. Like that we can add the cases. And we have default. And here statements to execute. So when value or expression not matched, then we have break. So that is how we define. So this is basic. You can add any number of cases and you can configure that. So example, this is a simple example for that. So the case, this is an example for that. This is the case. So we have the options. So switch, case 1, case 2, case 3, how you configure and define them. Now, what is the technical questions here? What are the technical questions regularly asked here is? So in interviews, the regularly asked questions, the frequently asked questions is, first one is just like question wise I will give here. The point first question regularly asked is, can we define a switch without, can we define a case or yeah, first switch without default. That means, is default mandatory in a switch? Without default, can we define? So the answer for this is yes, we can. We can define a switch without default. Only the point is, if it is not matching anything, it will not execute anything. For example, here, if it is 4 not matching with anything, then it prints only 1, 3. If you haven't written default, it doesn't matter. It will not print anything. So if it is thing, it will print only that. Others it will, there is no alternative. You know that you can have an if without else clause. That is simple. So is it valid? It is valid. Without default also we can define. Okay. Can we define default? Can we define default at any location in switch? That is another question. Answer yes. You can define at any location. That means it's not mandatory that it should be at the starting only, ending only. Suppose here you see, I will remove the default and keep it somewhere in between the cases. So even you put in between the cases, it's fine, it is working. If I keep 3, then you can see it is working fine, no problem. That means default, you can start with the default, you can end with the default, you can keep anywhere. It's not mandatory that it should be at the end. You can define default at any place. So can we define default at any location in switch? Yes. There is no order for that. We can define anywhere. Next option is, another question is, can we define switch case? Can we define case without break? Yes, you can define case without break. So if no break defined, then it will stop. It will stop only when next break occurred, or will stop at the end. Will stop at the end. So it will execute all statements. It will execute all statements. So you can have a case without break. For example, actually, suppose I said n equal to 2. Now 2 is matching, but 2 is not having a break. 3 is having a break. Then 3 also will execute. So it will not stop after executing 2. It will execute the next one. Until the next break comes, it will execute 2 and 3. If 3 is also not having break, then it will execute default also. So it will execute default. That's not an error. It can be. It can continue up to end. Even if you don't define break here, then automatically it will continue up to end. So break is important. Even you don't define a break, it will work. It's not error. Only the point is execution will not stop. It will continue. It will continue. So you can have. Can we define case without break? Yes. Yes. Actually, generally here, this is not break. We call it as, syntactically we call it as jump statement. Jump statement. So here after default also jump statement. Then in many interviews, the question asked in many interviews is, they ask the question like, can we use return instead of break? Can we use return instead of break? Can we use return instead of break? That is the question asked. So because return is also remember return is also a jump statement. So many times the question asked, can we use return instead of break? Answer is yes, we can. Then many times the question asked is, then what is difference between return and break? What is difference between return and break? The difference is nothing but actually the difference between return and break is, so return will stop execution. That means stop compiling. Stops execution, you can say execution. And terminates the program. Complete program will stop. But a break actually, so break will just terminate the current block. It will not stop entire program. If some more work to be done inside the program, then use break. If no other work need to be done, you can use return. So break and return both are jump statements only. So you see, suppose for 3, I am writing return. And I am writing here 3. And you can see it's fine. It is fine. It's working 3. It is returning it. There is no problem in that. It's working fine. So what happens here is generally it is able to execute and it is able to manage this execution. But point is when it comes written, it will stop the program execution itself and it comes out. Again, the program have to load into memory and compile if you want again. But if it is break, the program is still in the memory. It is compiling, it is processing. Just it will come out of the block and stop it. It will come out of the block, but it will be inside the program. So it depends. If you have some more work to do, then use break. There is no other work, simply terminate the program execution, then use return. Both are used, both are working, both are used and both are working. So difference is that return will terminate the program. Break will just terminate the current block. That is the point. Next important, another question is, can we define case value string type? Can we define case value string type? Can we define the case value string type? That is another option. Can we define case value string type? So here also the answer is yes. Yes. So it can be number type, it can be string type. Actually, case value can be a number, string, or Boolean. So Boolean. It can be a number, string, or Boolean. It cannot be anything else. So it cannot be an array or an object. So, or a function. It can be a number or a string or a Boolean. These are the basic case values. It can be string type also. But if it is string type, then we have again some problems. For example, so we say choice. Choice I given as some choice I given here as Y. And I am writing the cases here. Here into the switch, I will pass the choice. And here I am writing here case, this time Y. That means document.write. You selected yes. Something like this. Then break. If case is N, then document.write. You selected no. Like that. And break. Default document.write. Please enter yes, Y or N. Y or N. That's how we are defining. And break. It can be a string. You can have a string type. It says you selected yes. And if I say N, then it says you selected no. That's working. You can have a string type. So this is an example. You can have a string type. That is an example here. But what is problem is when you are defining string type. So here one more option is how to handle capitalization of string. How to handle capitalization of string. You have to convert to lowercase or uppercase. You have to convert to lowercase or uppercase. How to handle the capitalization? By converting to lowercase, uppercase. Why? Because, or there is one more option. You can also define multiple cases for single value. You can define multiple cases for single value. Two methods are there. For example, here you see, suppose I typed y uppercase y. In the case there is no uppercase y, then what happens? It says please select y or n. I am entering y only but uppercase. So then how you manage that? Two techniques are there. One is you can define multiple cases. That means you can write case y uppercase. That means if it is matching with this or this, it will execute this. Similarly, you can write case uppercase n. If it is matching this or this, it will execute this. And you will see that it is going to execute yes working now. You can define multiple cases to handle capitalization. But this is not great every time. For numbers also you can do. For numbers also you can do that. But that is not great every time. So why it is not great every time? Example I will give here. So why it is not great every time? Because if it is a single character, that's okay. Suppose I asked here to type yes. Then here user will enter in several ways. Suppose you used the word yes. Then sometimes anyone can type yes, Y-E-S like this, or Y-E-S like this. That means E uppercase, Y uppercase. Sometimes user may type Y-E-S uppercase. Sometimes user may type like this. Several consequences will be there. You cannot write all of them here, time waste. Then in that case, what you can do is simply, you can convert this dot to lowercase. That means this word is converted into lowercase. And you use only lowercase here. Yes or no. You use only lowercase here. In that, now what happens here is, see, it's working fine. Even they type uppercase no, it will work. You can see it's working. You selected no. They typed some Y-E-S toggle, and you see it's working fine. Why? Because it converts to lowercase and verifies. So if it is capitalization, then it is going to handle this. It is going to verify and manage that. So this is how we write the case to handle the capitalization if it is a string type. So this is another example for that. You can convert or you can write multiple cases. Multiple case is not only for string. Generally, multiple case we write for any type. So it may be a string type, or it may be a number type. So you can configure for multiple, right? So these are the options. One more important is, while working with switch, many times the question asked, another question asked is how to handle conditions in a switch. So first point is, can we handle conditions in switch? So answer is yes, we can handle conditions in switch. So we need Boolean value as switch value. That is another very important one. Boolean value as switch value. For example, suppose you can have conditions actually. So suppose you see I'm writing a switch here. Suppose where number n is equal to, suppose I'm defining some number. So we are configuring the number. And see, n is suppose some 3 like this. We write a switch into that, we will pass that n value. And in the case, I'm writing conditions here. We can define condition. The condition is, so n greater than or equal to 0 or 1 and double ampersand, n less than or equal to 10. That means if the case is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 10, then you have to display document.write. So your number, so whatever we are here, your number. So here n is between 1 to 10. That's how we are configuring. And break. And if the case I given as n greater than or equal to 11 and n less than or equal to some 20, like this you can define. And document.write. So your number n is between, so we define between 11 to 20. That's how we configure, then break. So, or I said default, I can write like that multiple conditions, default. So we say document.write. So your number and the value n is above 20. Above 20, like this we define. We can add other conditions also. I am not writing. Now don't come up like, sir, if it is less than 1, what will happen? If less than 1, we haven't written any condition. We have to write for that also. I just written only 2 conditions. If it is less than 1, then put another message. That's it. So here, what we do is, now when I run this, you can see here how to pass the switch value. This is not the right way. This is wrong now. Why? Because what is the result of this expression? What is the result of that expression? Is it a number or a boolean or a string? What do you say? What is the result of that expression? N greater than 1 and n less than 10. What is the result of that condition? The result of this condition is boolean. Good. That means the switch value must be not a number. Switch value must be which one? Switch value must be boolean, because here result is boolean. Na? Here case is boolean, then switch cannot be number. Because if it is a number, it can be 0, 1, because your JavaScript supports booleans 0, 1, but it is not 0, 1, it can be anything. In that case, here, this is interesting. Here, you have to put true. That's it. That means if which condition is matching true for this value, which case is matching true for this particular, that case will execute. That is how we write booleans actually. If there is a boolean condition, you cannot pass a number or string here. If there is a boolean condition, you cannot pass number or string. if there is a Boolean condition, then you have to pass Boolean value. Then you have to pass the Boolean value, that Boolean, that is true or false. Here actually switch will not accept, it is not good to pass false in switch, because switch always should start with a positive. So otherwise it will be abnormal in behavior. It should pass true. That means now you see, now it is saying that your number 3 is between 1 to 10. Suppose I said some 15, then your number 15 is between 11 to 20. It is between 11 to 20. So if I say 9, so that means your number is between 1 to 10, like this. Suppose 29, then your number is about 20. That is how we manage the conditions, configure the conditions. For switch, especially how we use this. These kind of questions are very common in fresher interviews. So regularly these syntaxes are given and they ask what will be the result for that. So is it correct or not to define that? All these things are very important. So we need to manage that. This is how we can configure and use the switch. And while handling multiple conditions, we will see now how to put this in our programs, where and how to use them in our programs. That means situation wise, there are different conditions you want to execute specific. Then example we will see first. Later we will implement the complex one. First we will see the sample example, how it works. Then we can go into complex. These are all the questions related to switch. So, and how the syntax and options will work. For example, suppose in a page, I will create here doc type h head. So title some switch. We will implement a complex one also. First, we will see the basic. Here we link relation is equal to style. Href is node modules bootstrap and dist css bootstrap.css and the class container fluid. And I just added roughly a field set with a legend. Select view or select view. Here just I given select view and we have a select. So class form select and we have an option. So details and another option preview and another option as description like this. This is generally a drop down or buttons navigation, anything you can define here. Now what happens is in this basic details preview description, we give an ID. This value is option. This is basic. This one value is preview. So this value is description. It will submit those details. And here I'm creating another field set with a legend. And we need to display something here in the label. ID as LBL title. And below this, we have certain containers. So one div. This ID is details container. In that we have data list, data term, suppose name and data definition, some JBL speaker like this. And the data term price and data definition, some price. Roughly we configure. This is details container. And another div. We have an ID as preview container. In that I have an image source and assets, some speaker.jpg. So width 200, height 200 like this. And we have another ID as description container. And here we have a heading, something about JBL speaker, some paragraph. So features. So like that I define. These are several containers. Then finally all will display in this way. All will be in this way. Now what I'm doing is when display none. That means the details container, preview container, description container, the display is none. Now at the top an option as select any view. So that is select any view. Here I give as some product details. Okay. Select any view. Basic details, preview, description. Now when user selects, I need to display concerned information below. So what we will do is here I will write a logic on change. On change indicates when drop down change. So I say view change. View change function will fire up. Let's write that in the script. Function view change. On view change, what should happen here? First we collect view document.getElement by ID. This has ID as LST views. That means this select have LST views. LST views dot value. That means it will return the selected view name, basic preview description. Now here another LBL title is equal to document get element by ID. LBL title, that is label. Here we are writing a switch. Into the switch we are passing this view name. We are passing the view name, which is a string. That means case, if it is basic, then what it should do? Document dot get element by ID. So we have a details container. You see details container is there.